Now, corruption is getting worse in many parts of the world. According to the non-governmental group Transparency International, with Africa still the worst performing region. However, the organization's Corruption Perceptions Index does throw up some surprises, with some bright spots in West Africa while highlighting alarming declines in some European nations. Here's Henry Ridgwell.
The Ivory Coast and Senegal are among the top performers, each gaining 9 points since 2012 on the index, which scores a country's perceived level of corruption on a scale of 100. Transparency International says the leaders of both countries have followed through on campaign promises to tackle corruption.
They've both actually established anti-corruption commissions or fraud offices, so they're actually taking the issue much more seriously.
Rwanda, Botswana and Mauritius are also praised in the report. But Africa is the worst performing region as a whole, though there is some momentum for change. This year's theme for the African Union is winning the fight against corruption, a sustainable path to Africa's transformation.
So we might see a bit of a delay. Maybe in 5 years' time we'll see some really great scores coming out of Africa, but there's a lot of work still to be done.
Bottom of the index were countries racked by conflict and poverty: Syria, South Sudan and Somalia, which scored 14, 12 and 9 respectively. The Somali government insists it is tackling corruption.
There are some stealing, some thievery, and there is some money wasted because of the nature of how the country is. Totally destroyed nation, a country that had no system for many years.
In Europe, Hungary has seen one of the most dramatic falls, with a 10-point decline in the index during the past 6 years.
And that's echoing a situation in the country which is repressing civil society, is clamping down on freedom of speech.
Hungary's foreign minister dismissed those accusations Thursday.
Transparency International listája.
The list of Transparency International is yet another statement which is part of the unprecedented attack of international organisations against Hungary. It is merely about that they do not agree with the migration policy of Hungary.
Countries with the least protection for journalists tend to have the worst rates of corruption.
Over the last 6 years, 9 out of 10 journalists that have been killed were killed in highly corrupt countries. Now that means that one journalist every single week is being killed in a really corrupt country. And sadly, again, we found that 1 in 5 of those journalists was actually reporting on a corruption story.
Overall, more than half of countries around the world have either flatlined or declined on the corruption index. The United States is in 16th place with a score of 75. Transparency International is calling on governments to do more to encourage free speech and protect independent media. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Now, what is the Corruption Perceptions Index? What are the actual levels of corruption in a country? For clarity, I'm joined by VOA Senior Analyst Jeffery Young. Jeffrey, welcome back.
Good to see you.
So people hear this, corruption perceptions. What is that?
And this is very significant because when you're trying to rank countries as to the level of corruption, you have to ask, by what measurements do we do this? Do you do it by how many people arrested, how many people tried, how many people convicted and sent to jail? Well, but legal systems are different in different countries, and the application of the law in different countries can be quite dissimilar. So we have a metric here called Corruption Perceptions Index, and Transparency International on their front page of the index says that this is a ranking according to experts and business people of the perception of corruption in a particular country.
Yeah. So could this essentially mean that there could be actually actual corruption in a country than the way it is perceived in relation to another country?
Or the visibility of corruption. Let me give you an example. I was in Nigeria several months ago, and as a result, I'm kind of infused with Nigerian media because I'm reading their stuff every day. Since the arrival of Muhammadu Buhari in 2015, he has mounted a major anti-corruption fight in Nigeria. As a result, corruption is front page news every single day. If you look at almost anything online from Nigeria or a newspaper or watch Nigerian TV, corruption, front page story, top of the story, again and again and again. Corruption Perceptions Index. My point is, Nigeria has fallen 12 places in the latest rankings compared to 2016. My question here, as someone who has covered this index for years, is this a reflection of the much greater visibility of corruption in Nigeria than there was before Muhammadu Buhari took power?
So it could be the case that because the country is talking more about it, the government taking more action against it, it makes it appear as if there's more corruption in a particular country.
Correct. I'm not sure that this is a flawless discussion, but I think it's fair to say that when a country has a level of corruption that becomes much more visible on a daily, constant basis, the perception of corruption is more than likely going to go up.
Whereas there could be a place where there's quite some corruption, but nobody's doing anything about it or talking about it, and therefore we're not as much aware.
Very true.
No.
But it is important that we have this index because Transparency International is giving us a measurement, some measurement of what is going on in the world.
At least
and
we
that's
get
great.
the idea. Yeah. Jeffrey, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining us, for that, giving some clarity to that sometimes confused concept of corruption. Now, I want to thank Jeffery Young. He's a VOA Senior Analyst.